All right, Mob, welcome back. I haven't said cream of the crop in a while, so cream of the crop, 4th and 31 podcast. I am your host, D. Chad, along with Coach Bo. And tonight on Coach Talk, guys, we're going to get into a little bit of college football. It's kind of the off season, not much to talk about, but Bo is going to give his top 10 college football programs and some honorable mentions. And he said there was a couple of surprises in there. So get ready in the comments. I know that's going to be fun. First off, before we get into college football, something that hasn't happened since 2002, I believe. Alabama not only took the series from Florida in baseball, they actually swept them in baseball, which is crazy considering they lost to South Alabama earlier in the week, got swept by Kentucky last weekend, but then you come home and you beat Florida 3-0. Friday night, Tyler Fay no-hit the Gators. So it's been a while since Alabama had a one-person. No, they've had a couple of no-hitters a few years ago, but that was combined. That's their first, I believe, solo no-hitter in dang near 30 years or so. So that's a huge, huge 3-game sweep for Bama. That gets them back to 500 in the league, something they needed. So, Bo, I'm going to let you get started here. We'll kind of skim over the baseball because I know everybody wants to go into this college football, as they rightly should. Top 10 college football programs of all time. I know you have criteria, and I know it's very thorough. I've known you since we were in middle school. Very thorough, very thought out, very cerebral. One of the smartest football guys I know. Honorable mentions. Let's start off with your honorable mentions.
First off, I've got to take issue with you on something you said. You said one of the most egregious words that a college football fan could ever say. And I want to hear you say, I'm sorry after I address this, is you said the word off season. There is no off season. College football lives forever. Right. 165 days a year.
All right. Now, well, I will forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. And you know what? Let's back up just a little bit. The man, the myth, the legend, Chuck Norris passed away. I didn't even think this man could die. Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups. He pushes the earth away.
No, he didn't.
That's a sad day.
Death knocked on his door, and then when he answered the door, it ran away. So this is all a hoax.
Well, I hope it's a hoax, because that's my Davidson High School mind cannot comprehend Chuck Norris died.
I mean, because he was
Chuck Norris.
I mean, because you're talking about a guy that was once bitten by a deadly cobra, and after 5 agonizing days, the cobra finally died. So I refuse to believe that this American icon has died. I reposted something the other night about Chuck Norris doing the Chuck Norrisisms, and it was some of it was so funny. It was so good.
Did you know, like, for instance, the boogeyman checks under his bed for Chuck Norris?
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that. That's day one stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
You're taught that at birth. So everybody should already know that. But yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, man, I mean, you just think that guy was just like immortal. He was timeless. I mean, he just one of those guys that just, he just looked like he always looked in good shape and good health. And, everybody's got to have their time. So rest in peace, Chuck Norris.
That's right. All right.
Getting to the college football. So I took pretty much the 10 winningest college football programs of all time. And then I made this little formula where I looked at conference championships, national championships, number of All-Americans, Heisman Trophy winners, kind of laid that out. And remember, this is my list, not yours. So if you don't like my list, you can get your own show and you can make your own list. But for those of you who actually appreciate good substantive college football talk, we're going to go ahead and start with our, you said you wanted to start with the honorable mentions.
Yeah, start from the bottom, work your way up.
Yeah, so we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. And so for my honorable mentions, the 25th winningest program of all time, believe it or not, is the Washington Huskies with 790 wins, with 18 conference championships and 2 national championships, but they also have 3 that were unclaimed. Number 24 of all time was West Virginia with 791 wins and 15 15 conference championships, no national championships, but the great Don Nalen did some real damage up there in Morgantown for many years. And remember, the prodigal son has returned, Rich Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Also,
general.
Texas A&M with 797 wins. They were 23rd all time. 18 conference championships, 3 natties. All right, here's one that may surprise some folks. Auburn coming in 20th, 809 total wins, 16 conference championships, 9 total national championships. Now, if you notice, for some of these, I'm saying claimed and unclaimed because, like, for example, Alabama's won 18, claimed 18 national titles, but I think there were 3 or 4, either 3 or 4 or 5, something like that they were unclaimed. So, and then, of course, there was one for Alabama that was in dispute, but there was some kind of they actually finished, I think, 5th in the poll one year. But based on the mathematical formula that was used to determine the national champion, they actually had the highest grade and were actually, and even though they had 2 losses, they still graded out to be the highest graded team. So, they were claimed national champions from one of the polls from way back when. Okay.
I think that was 1941.
Yeah, I think that was either 41 or 42, something like that. Clemson in the 18th spot with 815 wins, 28 conference titles, 3 natties. LSU in the 17th spot with 882 wins, 16 national championships, 4 claimed, 16 conference titles, 8 natties, 4 claimed, 4 unclaimed. Coming in the 14th spot, the Tennessee Volunteers with 883 wins, 13 conference championships, 6 claimed national championships, 1 unclaimed. And then I had to put these 2 in here just based on the number of wins. Yale, 7th all-time in wins, 952 wins. They've won 19 conference championships, some a little more recent. They've won 27 national championships, which is the most of all time. But the disclaimer is their last championship they won in 1927. So a little bit has changed.
Hey, that's coming up 100-year anniversary.
100-year anniversary. A lot's changed since the Yale Bulldogs won their last title, and our 43rd president George Bush was a cheerleader at Yale. And then Harvard is 10th all time in wins, 918 wins, 19 conference championships, 8 national championships, but they also have 5 that are unclaimed. Now, their last title was in 1918. Okay, wow. I do have to give them their props because even though they, it was many, many years ago, you can't ignore the history books. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's get down to Coach Bo's top 10 programs of all time. And coming in the 10th spot are the Penn State Nittany Lions with 950 wins. 3 of their most predominant coaches were a guy named Rip Engel, long before Joe Paterno. Of course, Joe Paterno with over 400 wins. And then, believe it or not, James Franklin, who won well over 100 games at Penn State. Now, in their history, they've only won 4 conference championships. But keep in mind that Penn State did not join a conference, and they joined the Big Ten in 1991, I believe. They were independent when Paterno won the 2 titles. They were independent back then. So I'm not gonna count that against them. Those are the only 2 titles that they've won. Their bowl record was 33.
No excuse.
Say
no
again?
excuses. No excuses. They should have won more conference championships.
They probably could.
I'm not giving them a pass. They're a well enough established program where that's not an excuse.
I agree. But given the fact that Michigan and Penn State had like 100-year head start on them, I do give them a little bit of slack there. Their overall bowl record is 33, 21, and 2. They've had 100 consensus All-Americans, and they have had one Heisman Trophy winner. So Penn State is in the 10th slot. When I think of Penn State, I think of like Kajiana Carter and Larry Johnson and Blair Thomas. I mean, great running backs, power football. Really.
Speaking of Blair Thomas, didn't he win a Senior Bowl MVP back in the day?
Do what now?
I think Blair Thomas won a Senior Bowl Most Valuable Player back in the day.
Probably did. I mean, that was probably one of those years where the North beat the South really bad. I went to a Senior Bowl
Yeah, it
one
was like
year.
41-0.
God, it was like, yeah, like 41-3 or something. Like
Yeah,
it was cold, rainy,
yeah.
terrible weather, and the
That was
North
I believe that was the game. Hey,
just
somebody
beat.
check me. Did we stop recording? You back?
I'm back. I'm here.
All right.
All right. So in my 9 spot,
Minus 1 point.
okay, goes to the Georgia Bulldogs with 904 wins, 18 conference championships, 4 national titles, bowl record of 38, 22, and 3 with 42 consensus All-Americans. That's the lowest number of these teams. That's one of the reasons I have the Bulldogs. I don't have them any higher than 9. And 2 Heisman Trophy winners, one of them being obviously Herschel Walker. They're some of their top coaches, Wally Butts, Mark Richt, Mr. 10 wins. He won a bunch of games at Georgia. Just, the big one always kind of seemed to elude him, but he won a ton of games at Georgia. Vince Dooley won the national championship on the Herschel Walker team. And of course, Kirby Smart. You can't talk about Georgia and not talk about Kirby Smart. But this is, Georgia has long been established as one of the best programs in college football. And one of the things that I will say about Georgia, it's kind of been shocking to me they haven't won more championships than they have won, which I'm not saying it's easy to win championships. I mean, as good as Bobby Bowden was, he only won 2. I say only in quotation marks because it's just not that easy. But Georgia, as many players as they put out and as many games as they've won and as good as they've been, but they had a stretch after in between Vince Dooley and Kirby Smart where they didn't exactly make some great, great top tier hires. Ray Goff.
Well, I mean,
Ray Goff is one of the ones that comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, for years they had a Florida problem,
Yeah,
and then after that they had a
Florida
Bama problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it's it
happens.
yeah, it's not as if they were losing to garbage teams or garbage programs. I mean,
Right.
all right, so those are number 10 and number 9. Number 8 goes to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 972 wins. Of course, no conference championship wins. And there will always be a goose egg in that column, so nobody get your hopes up about that.
Well, hold on, back up just a second. They did play in the ACC championship game back in 2020, didn't they?
Yeah, that was a joke. They put an asterisk by that and wad that up and throw it in the garbage. And by the way, they got their ass kicked too. So,
I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, 13 national championships, overall bowl record of 22 and 21, 113 All-Americans, 7 Heisman Trophy winners, which is a lot. Of course, most of the storied Notre Dame program comes from between Newt Rockne and Lou Holtz. And then there was a large gap after Lou Holtz where they were, Notre Dame was a very middling program. But the only thing I will say in Notre Dame's defense is when you have all-time legendary coaches like that, it's not just that easy to replace them. You just think, oh, well, it's Notre Dame or it's Alabama or it's whatever big name brand it is. And you just think that some coach is just going to walk in and they're just going to keep winning at the same level. And nothing's ever going to change. We at Alabama also are finding that out too. Where, we're still good. We're still relevant. It doesn't look the same, but it doesn't look the same for a lot of teams because of everything that's going on with NIL and transfer. But anyway, I will give props where props are due. Notre Dame won a ton of games. Newt Rockne, Frank Leahy, Lou Holtz, the top 3 coaches that ever coached Notre Dame. And just between those 3, they pretty much won the overwhelming majority of their national championships. I believe I left off Ara Parseghian. I can't believe I left Ara Parseghian off. I'm proof positive he won at least one.
What about Devine?
Yeah, Dan Devine came in after and won some games, but I just took basically the 3 winningest coaches and put them on there. I pretty much did that for most every program. Okay, in the sixth spot, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, 931 wins, 46 conference championships, 5 national championships, 111 All-Americans, 3 Heisman Trophy winners, an overall bowl record of 27-28. But they have, and I just had to make a note of this because this was really impressive. They had a 35-year consecutive streak of going to a bowl game. And keep in mind the fact that Tom Osborne, in the whole time he was at Nebraska, never won fewer than 9 games. And that was when they were only playing an 11-game regular season schedule. I mean, Nebraska was so dominant, and they were just blowing teams out and running the score up. And they did it running power football and running triple option. But also there was another guy before him, Bob Devaney, won a bunch of games, won some natties. But Tom Osborne, when I think Nebraska football, I think Tom Osborne, power football, offensive line, weightlifting program. There was a book that came out years ago called The Assembly Line, and it was about Nebraska and offensive line and building an offensive line and how they went through their whole system of producing offensive line. Is really good book. But Nebraska, I hope for the glory of college football that you can propel yourself into the top part of the Big Ten and make it into the college football playoffs, because I truly believe that college football is better when Nebraska's good. Nebraska's one of those blue blood programs. When Nebraska's good, it's good for college football. Great, tremendous fan base. And I really sympathize with those people because, there was a time where we as Alabama, we were kind of walking through the wilderness too, kind of looking for our next guy. So hopefully it'll happen for them. Okay, in the next slot, we have the Texas Longhorns, 971 wins, 34 conference championships, 4 national championships, 129 consensus All-Americans, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, an overall bowl record of 34, 27, and 2. And Darrell Royal and Mac Brown are 2 coaches that had the most success at those programs. Darrell Royal, when he started running triple option at Texas, because if memory serves correct, that's pretty much where Bear Bryant got it from, was from Darrell Royal running it at Texas. And the success he had and the success the Horns had, to me, they're one of those lightning rod programs. Is they have a tremendous fan base, and people outside of the fan base usually hate Texas. So, but they're always a good draw. Again, another one of those blue blood programs. All right, in the 5th spot, we go to the Oklahoma Sooners with 960 wins, 50 conference championships, 7 national championships, 169 All-Americans, 7 Heisman Trophy winners. That's tied for the most all time. Bud Wilkinson, Barry Switzer, and Bob Stoops. That's about as good of a trio as you can have as far as your top head coaches. And man, I tell you, when I think of Oklahoma, the first thing that comes to my mind, Barry Switzer, Brian Bosworth, and steroids.
Yes, the Boz.
The Boz.
Yes.
Say whatever you want about the Boz, and of course he's publicly talked about this, about him putting things in his body that did long-term damage to him, and that's probably one of the reasons he had all the issues with injuries but put on his college film, watch his highlight film. He was a one-man wrecking crew. He was absolutely phenomenal in college. Put all the bad stuff aside, just watch him play. He was unbelievable. And then Barry Switzer, that's another team talking about running triple option, tough, hard nose. Again, they had one of the better tight ends, of the last probably 30, 40 years to play in the NFL. Keith Jackson played at Oklahoma during that time, and just all the championship games, the Orange Bowls, the big games against Miami, and I believe they played Florida State a few times in the bowl game, and all the big battles with Nebraska and Texas over the years, and I just think Oklahoma. I think there's a lot of people that kind of overlook Oklahoma when it comes to the traditions and the big time college football programs, especially now because it's been 25, 26 years since. I mean, their last title was in 2000 when Bob Stoops, in his second year, won that with Josh Heupel as his quarterback.
Bobby Hill.
Do what?
Bobby Hill.
Yep, won that national championship, and they had an amazing defense with Rocky Calmus. I mean, their defense was unbelievable. Beat Florida State in the championship
13-2.
Yeah, they their defense just suffocated Florida State in that game. And since then, they've gotten to some playoffs and some, they've really had a kind of a time of it as college football has evolved, over the last 20, 25 years or so. But don't ever forget. I mean, the Barry Switzer days at Oklahoma, they were a nightmare. Nobody wanted to play them. They were a nightmare. All right. So that brings us to the fourth spot, and that brings me to Ohio State with 990 wins, 41 conference championships, 9 national championships, a 27-28 bowl record, 99 All-Americans, and 6 Heisman Trophy winners. Actually, it's only 5 Heisman Trophy winners, but the tailback that won it twice, Archie Griffin. Thank you. Just drew a blank there. Archie Griffin won it twice, but I went ahead and put 6 down because you still got 6 Heisman trophies in the case. And then of course Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, 3 of the biggest winners in that program, all won national championships, 190 career wins. Ohio State truly has been, if not the best, of course, it depends on who you ask, if not the best, at least, 1A or 1B within the Big Ten, for the last, 60, 70 years worth of college football. So Ohio State, I put them in the 4 slot.
So you didn't put John Cooper in there with your coaches?
John Cooper won a ton of games, couldn't beat Michigan. And I would say, if any Ohio State fan were watching this and I put John Cooper on that list, they would immediately start just going nuts.
That's why I brought him up.
I know. Good football coach, won a lot of games, but he is to Ohio State what Bill Curry was to Alabama. Recruited well, won a lot of games. Bill Curry couldn't beat Auburn. He went 0-4 against Auburn. John Cooper went 0-4 against Michigan. Good men, good for the program. Just, that was a different time in college football. It was all about, that rivalry game was so important. All right, in the 3 spot, we're gonna hail to the victors on this one. The Michigan Wolverines, the winningest program of all time. And some of you may be saying, well, if they're the winningest program of all time, why don't you have them higher? Well, because the 2 I have in front of them, they can have a little bit better credentials in certain areas. The top 4 coaches I pulled out from Michigan: Fielding Yost, Bo Schembechler, Lloyd Carr, and I'll put Jim Harbaugh on there because he did win a title, but everybody knows that that title should be taken away.
Little asterisk.
Yeah, there's a big asterisk with that. Because the thing about that one is it wasn't like it was a rogue booster. It wasn't like, you had people buying players off or anything like that. Everything that happened was done by the people inside the building. That's what makes it even worse. Is not only did they know about it, they facilitated it, promoted it, encouraged it, and kept going with it. But I will not take away from the fact that Jim Harbaugh and those players won on the field. I'm not going to take away from that. Overall bowl record of 24-30. They're given credit for 11 national championships, but there's 2 that one of those that mentioned, there was another one from back in the day that that many people and many polls do not recognize even to this day. But 140 All-Americans, 3 Heisman Trophy winners. Michigan is one of the most storied programs in college football. But the fact that I had them in the third spot, mainly because they had a losing bowl record, and I just feel like, well, I'll address the Bo Schembechler thing in a minute. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right. Anyway, in the 2 spot, the USC Trojans. Now they only have 891 wins. They are the only program that I can consider west of the Rocky Mountains that has been viable for a long time. The only one. Nobody else west of the Rocky Mountains has done anything even close to what the USC Trojans have done. 37 conference championships, 11 national titles, a 36-20 bowl record, 177 All-Americans, which is the most on this roster, and 7 Heisman Trophy winners, which is tied for the most on this roster as well. You got guys like, let's see, who was the first one here? Howard Jones, John McKay, who famously, when he went to the Tampa Bay Bucks, was asked about his offense's execution, and he said he was all for it because the Bucks were so bad. One of the great lines ever by a coach. And then of course, John Robinson. You know, John McKay did it in the 70s. John Robinson did it in the 80s. Pete Carroll did it in the 2000s. Lots of wins, lots of championships. One of the most storied programs in college football history, the USC Trojans. And of course, the number 1 program of all time, the Alabama Crimson Tide, coming in with 984 wins, 34 conference championships, 18 national championships, 174 All-Americans, 4 Heisman Trophy winners, and an overall bowl record of 48, 24, and 5, which is the most by far of anybody on this list. The most championships, the most bowl wins. And you got to give a lot of credit. Wallace Wade was the first coach at Bama to win a championship. And then you got, of course, Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. But there's also another guy you got to give credit to, Chad. You got to give credit to Mike DuBose. If he had not done what he did, we may not have gotten Nick Saban. So while it was a temporary setback, hear me out. While it was a temporary setback, and it did hurt, it hurt watching our Alabama football program to be in the condition it was in. But if he hadn't been such a screw up and had not have done all the stupid crap he did, we might not have gotten Saban, and we might have gone through him, and then or if we didn't get DuBose, we'd have just gone another coach that would have kept us relevant, but not where we wanted the program to be. So, like I said, while it was a temporary setback, I'm kind of being facetious when I say this. While we had a setback,
or maybe Hootie Ingram. Yeah, or maybe Hootie Ingram doesn't fire Gene Stallings, try to get rid of Gene Stallings. Gene Stallings was there 7 years. Won a national championship, conference championship, played in the SEC championship. But
4 or 5
4 years.
4 out of
4
7.
years. Well, 4 out of 5 because they didn't have it in 90 or 91.
Yeah.
So he played it in 92, 93, 94, 96.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you get rid of that guy?
Yeah, and also too, you think about Gene Stallings. You think about what he walked into. He walked into Bill Curry, who recruited excellent. I mean, he recruited a lot of those guys that Stallings ended up winning the championship with.
Sure, for sure.
And Stallings was just one of those. He was just one of those no nonsense. I mean, we talk about fits all the time. Like me personally, I think Kalen DeBoer is a very good football coach. He doesn't fit at Alabama, but that doesn't mean I'm going to bash him. I'm going to talk bad about him, and I'm going to hope for his demise. I would like to see him. To me, nothing would be sweeter than for him to win a championship and to show all the detractors that the guy is a good quality football coach. But Gene Stallings was a perfect fit. I mean, he understood Alabama football, play defense, run the football, win the line of scrimmage, be physical. That's always been Alabama football, and anytime we've had that recipe, we've always been good. And anyway, he was perfect for the time. But anyway, I was kind of being facetious about DeBose. I just wanted to kind of see your reaction there. But there is a little bit of truth to that. I mean, if he had not screwed up so bad, we may not have gotten Saban. I mean, if think about it, if Stallings stays another 5 years and then retires, there's no way we get Nick Saban, and there's no telling what happens with Stallings. I mean, you know as well as I do that most coaches, when they leave, it's never how they want to leave, and it's usually never on good terms. But if you look at Stallings' 7 years, just like you're talking about, he had that undefeated season. And then the next year, I think they won 9 games before they finally lost one. They lost one.
They tied.
Or they tied.
Well, they tied Tennessee, and then they lost to LSU.
LSU. And then they turned around, and then they beat Auburn again. And then they turned around the next year, and they won 8 in a row before they lost or something.
In 94, they went into the SEC championship game 12-0.
12, yeah. So you're talking about a 3-game stretch, in like a 34, 35 game stretch where they won like 32 games of the 30 or 31 of the 34 or something like that. And of course, you can't go back. It's all revisionist history. But if you look back on that and you apply it to now, Bama's in the playoff every year that Gene Stallings is there. So, I mean, you can't argue, everybody complained about the offense. We don't score enough. But God dang, they were so good on the defense. They didn't have to. There's a basic philosophy in football. If we end every possession in a kick, we're fine. It doesn't matter what kind of kick it is. As long as we're not shooting ourselves in the foot, committing penalties, turning the ball over, giving the short field, we're fine because we're going to play defense, and we know that. And that's what he lived by.
Yeah, and you said 93, they also lost to Auburn at the end of the year. That was when Auburn was on probation. The game wasn't on TV. So I know they tied Tennessee. I think they lost to LSU, and then they lost to Auburn.
Okay.
So I think they went 9-2-1 that year. That sounds maybe 8-3-1. It was one of the two. I think that was the year. I'm not sure if that was the year they played North Carolina in the Gator Bowl. The 94 Gator Bowl could have been. I think they might have went like 9-2-1 that year. But yeah, I mean, but Stallings, the way he started 0-3,
yeah,
you lose to Southern Miss, Florida, and Georgia, and then you go 7-2 the rest of the year. You get blown out by Penn State. You get blown out by Browning Nagel and Howard Schnellenberger in the Fiesta Bowl.
The fighting Schnellenbergers.
Yeah. I could have a whole show on those early 90s Bama teams.
Oh gosh. And so some of you listening might have picked up on there was you're probably wondering about how I left this team off and how I left that team off. Miami. Chad, where do you think Miami ranks all time in wins in college football?
God, so this has got to be a trick question. So you're asking me, so they must be low. So I'm going to say in the 40s.
They were number 61 all time in wins.
Wow.
But because if you think about Miami, if you really boil it down to brass tacks, the success of Miami football has been in about 2 decades worth of football. And that's about it. You have the Howard Schnellenberger time all the way up to through Jimmy Johnson and Dennis Erickson. Okay, because then after that they went on probation. So that's maybe 12 years. Okay, where they were really winning. Then you bring in Butch Davis, which he had to rebuild the program. And then they had that really good year where they got, quote unquote, left out of the championship game. And then they won it the next year with Larry Coker. They blew out Nebraska. And then the next year they lost to Ohio State. And then from then until when Mario Cristobal got there, they won virtually nothing. They won nothing. They played in one ACC championship game, got blown out by Clemson. And then they had this year where they got to the national championship game. Guys, I'm telling you right now, that is about the history of Miami football in a nutshell. Now, don't get me wrong. When they've been good, they've been great. But the consistency over the course of time, I mean, because when I'm looking at this list, Bama goes back to winning championships in the 20s. Michigan, the same thing. I mean, they were winning championships in 1902, 1914, 1940, and of course, all the way up to the Jim Harbaugh day. So when I'm looking at my list, I'm looking at teams that have done it over decades, over the course of 100 years, not just not just a kind of blips on the radar. And that's kind of the way I view the Miami program. However, when they're good, they're usually really good because there's so much talent down there. But when they get somebody down there that understands that and goes and gets those players and keeps those players there, and that's how Howard Schnellenberger built the program. He just said, we're going to put up a picket fence down here. Nobody's getting in. Nobody's getting in. Nobody's getting out. These are our guys. And I mean, they won national championship with all those guys that were from South Florida. They didn't go anywhere to get. I mean, yeah, they might have gone and cherry picked a couple guys here and there once they kind of got going, but that's how the program was built. Butch Davis, same thing. When he came in and rebuilt the program, he's like, I'm just going to recruit this area. We're good. And Mario Cristobal understands that too. Of course, he played at the U. I mean, he was there. You know, kind of. He was there during Dennis Erickson, I believe, because he was on that team that lost to Alabama. I think he was on the team that beat Alabama and in the '89 Sugar Bowl, and the team that lost to Alabama.
Yeah, he was. So was Rohan Marley, if you know the last name.
Yeah, that was Bob Marley's son, right? Or nephew.
Yeah, he played for Miami back in the day.
Yeah, he was.
That was right around Warren Sapp's time and The Rock.
Oh yeah,
Dwayne Johnson.
Well,
I think he might have been like the next year, but
yeah,
he was around that time frame. Yeah.
You know what was crazy about that Miami team that lost to Alabama is they had 3 linebackers on that team that started in the Pro Bowl a few years later in the NFL. Ray Lewis, Jesse Armstead, and Michael Barrow were all starting linebackers on that Miami team, and Alabama ran it down their throats all game long. I mean, Alabama ran for well over 300 in that game. Over 5 a carry. I mean, they just tore Miami up on the ground. And again, that was the first time Miami had seen a team like Alabama that had that good experienced physical offensive line, and everything was just downhill. And you're running those big fullbacks inside, Martin Houston, Terrence Lynch. Those are some big boys. I mean, you're talking about 235, 240 pounds of raging bull coming through there.
Yeah, then you had Derek Lassinick, Sherman Williams, your finesse guys.
Yeah.
Then the two big monsters. But if nobody, I know probably a lot of people don't remember that game because I was 13, 14 when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But Alabama was only up 13-6 at halftime. Miami's first 2 possessions after half, Gino Toretto.
Pick 6.
Gino Toretto. No, that was the second one. The first one he picked, T.P. Johnson picked it off, ran it to the 20. They scored. The very next after Bama scored, the very next play was it George Teague picked them off and took it to the house. And just like that, it was 27-6, and that game was over.
And blood was in the water. And the thing about that game, though, is it was really over long before then, because Alabama made Miami one-dimensional from about the 3rd possession of the game on, and they couldn't run the ball. Their Bama's defensive line just thoroughly dominated the game. They knew they couldn't run the ball, and the greatest play of that game wasn't even a play. Gino Toretto
got wiped off.
Yeah, no. Oh no, I'm not even talking about that. But the play you're talking about is actually the one in my background there. That picture, right up here, guys.
Yeah.
That was one of the most iconic plays in college football history.
Yeah.
But the play I'm talking about wasn't even actually a play. Gino Toretto comes to the line. There's 11 players at the line of scrimmage. Everybody's in a gap. Toretto looks to the sideline, throws his hands up, and just calls a timeout. They have no clue what to do, because that was the first,
that was all night.
Yeah, that was all night, but that was the first time they saw a defense that got after them and wasn't scared of them. Alabama wasn't scared of them at all. I mean, they didn't fear Miami. They had played against some of the best offensive players and best offensive units in the country. And Miami's playing in the Big East. They're playing Cincinnati and West Virginia, and Alabama's playing Florida and Georgia and Auburn and Tennessee. Big difference. They weren't scared. They weren't scared one bit of Miami.
Defensively, Alabama played. I mean, you're talking about, people are going to laugh at this, but Mississippi State had a damn good defense back in the 90s.
Joe Lee Dunn was an amazing defensive coordinator.
Yes.
If you don't know that name, some of the stuff that he would do was so unorthodox, but he was such a good. Jackie Sherrill was the head coach. the guy that went to Texas A&M and started the 12th man. Okay, he ends up at Mississippi State. Joe Lee Dunn's his defensive coordinator. And let me tell you, they had some nasty defenses.
They did. Defensively, they played against Mississippi State. It was probably a top 10 defense. You played against Tennessee, who was a top defense. I'm sure Auburn's defense,
Auburn
while they didn't have
plays
the
good
wins.
defense.
Yeah.
Auburn usually always plays good defense. When they have problems, it's usually on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, historically, I'm not talking about I'm not examining year over year, but historically, that's usually Auburn's issues. Usually on the offensive side.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, Mob, let's get in on this conversation. Let us know what you think of Bo's. I mean, obviously it's a homer top 10. Y'all don't have to say it. I'll say it, in the comments. Let us know what you think of his top 10. I mean, it's pretty realistic. If you don't like it, make one up, make your own up and put it in the comments. We want to know what your top 10 is.
Oh yeah.
If it makes you feel better to leave Alabama out, leave them out.
Yeah. That's what we call intellectual dishonesty. But anyway, I want to address one thing. Somebody left a comment about me. They were coming at me for leaving Bo Schembechler off my top list and off my top 10 coaches list. And I did put him in honorable mentions. He is Michigan's all-time winningest coach. He won a ton of conference championships. But again, while winning a championship was not a necessity for making my list, I have a really hard time ignoring the fact he went 5-12 in bowls, 2-8 in Rose Bowls, and he played in the stretch that he coaching in the Big Ten from 1969 to 1989. There was one national champion, and that was Ohio State. So what I'm saying is he beat up on a lot of very, very mediocre football teams. And then when they played the better teams in those bowl games, it didn't go well, as the record showed. So I think that maybe I'm not saying that Bo Schembechler wasn't a good coach. I understand what he means to the Michigan program, but any Michigan fan that's being honest knows exactly what I'm saying. Just like we were talking about like Bill Curry, John Cooper, good football coaches, but they had their shortcomings. They couldn't win those big games. And Schembechler was no different. He never won a national championship, and he had a losing. Anytime they played good teams in the postseason, it typically didn't go well. The one thing I will say for Michigan over the course of their history, I believe they had about a 500 record playing Alabama, or I think was it Alabama or the SEC? I can't remember. I think it was Alabama. Maybe they had a 500 record against. Or no, it was a 500 record against the SEC, and Ohio State had a very poor record going up against the SEC. Anyway, so that was my whole feelings on Bo Schembechler, and not to say he wasn't a good football coach and didn't do a lot of good for the Michigan community. It's very hard to ignore all those losses in the postseason. It's like I made a comment before. It's like I equated him to the 90s Braves. Great in the regular season, built for the regular season, but in the postseason, for one reason or another, things didn't break his way.
Crap the bed. That's what the Braves did in the 90s, except for one time.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, if you listen to Terry Pendleton, who were the Twins fully and wholly cheated in that series. Well, just real quick, I mean, it makes sense he was on that Cardinals team that played the Twins, I think in 87. When he was on that Braves team that played the Twins in 91. Minnesota never lost a home game in either series. He said that what they would do is he said they would blow these fans, and when they were up to bat, the fans blew out. And I think that's what it was. And then or maybe they had fans that blew in and they turned them off when the Twins batted, and then when the visiting teams batted, they turned them on. He said, Pendleton point blank, he said, when we played in Atlanta, He said, we hit 8 or 9 home runs in that series. He said, we hit 1 in Minnesota. And he said, and the only reason that we hit 1, he said, I hit it because it was a line drive. Because they were talking specifically about a ball that Ron Gant hit. He said Gant hit a ball, I think it was in game 6. He said he absolutely crushed that ball, crushed it, and it didn't leave the yard because they had the fans blowing in, and it just blew the ball, blew it down. And then there was something else.
Oh,
There was something else. There was something about some flags, and he and somebody else were pointing out to each other. Said you can look at some flags up there and watch how they're blowing. And then when the Braves would coming up to bat, he said, look, he said the banners were blowing in, and he said, and then when the Twins would bat, still.
wow! I want to have to find that. I guess it'd be on YouTube somewhere. I need to. Even more reason.
Yeah, it was a good sit down with Terry Pendleton. It's pretty funny. Good stuff.
All right, hey, before we sign off, do you got any college basketball?
Oh,
anything for college basketball?
Yeah, man. So my bracket, I'm in first place in my bracket, and basically all I did was I just rode the chalk, because if you haven't figured this out yet, boys and girls, NIL and transfer portal has greatly affected college basketball just as it has college football. Think about like this, that Yaxel Lindenborg kid, the Big Ten Player of the Year at Michigan. Chad, do you know where he played last year?
No, I'm going to be honest.
He played at UAB. Think about if Andy Kennedy still had him, the Big Ten Player of the Year, on his team that was pretty decent this year at UAB. And he was able to keep all those guys together for 3, 4, 5 years. See, because those are the kind of teams like Butler that ended up playing for back-to-back championships, like George Mason that ended up going and looking to run to the Final Four. Yes, we saw High Point beat Wisconsin.
I picked it.
You had that one, of course. The SEC team took care of High Point.
I had that.
Arkansas.
But, I had that.
Yeah, but that's pretty much where you're going to see these upsets in. It's going to be, they might get one, you might get one, but it's going to be chalk. And just like on Sunday with Kentucky got blown out. Well, that's an SEC getting drilled. Well, it was a 2 versus a 7. They should have gotten drilled. Or just like Missouri.
I had that.
Yeah. Oh, I had it too. Missouri is a 10, loses to a number 7 Miami.
I think I had that one too.
Yeah, the only
keep going.
The only upsets you might see in this tournament are that actually advance, like a 4 beating a 2 or something like that. But for the most part, it's going to be chalk. Especially in round 2 here to get to the Sweet 16. I mean, all these games have been blowout. I mean, not all of them, but most of them have been blowouts. 10-point wins, 12-point wins. So when I was making my bracket, what I did is I just basically went chalk. I went real heavy SEC Big Ten. I mean, think about it. The SEC had 110 over a 7. Texas as an 11 won 3 games. Okay. They even beat a 3 seed, which I had that on my bracket, by the way. I had them beating BYU and Gonzaga because the injury to the Gonzaga player but anyway.
Yeah.
But
nobody likes a braggart, dude.
Well, chances are I'm not going to win it anyway. But my point is Texas is in a power conference at a power school. It's not like George Mason making that run or Butler like we just talked about. Those were teams that Texas shouldn't have gotten into the tournament. They didn't deserve to get in, and then they got in and won 3 games because they're playing. They have a high payroll and they're playing in a big conference and they're playing against the best competition. And it's the same thing with the Big Ten. They got 5 teams that could run through and win the thing. I expect the Big Ten, one of those 5 Big Ten teams, to end that 26-year drought. Yes, that's a shot. But, and it's interesting because last year, the Southeastern Conference had the most historic college season in college basketball. I mean, think about it. 14 teams got in, and about half the teams got to the Sweet 16, and then half of those got to the Elite Eight. And then you had 2 of the 4 in the Final Four. And then, of course, Florida wins it. And all we could hear about was there's no way 14 teams from one conference should win it. It wasn't. This is a historic season and probably one of the greatest seasons we've ever witnessed from one conference. No, that wasn't the argument. It's because of the SEC. If it's any other conference, we were going to be forced to celebrate it for the next 10 months. But my point is the way the NIL and the portal works, it's same with college football. It's fluid. This year, the SEC is not as good. Now, they showed you they still got some firepower. Winning those, you talking about an 11 beating a 6, an 11 beating a 3, a 10 beating a 7, and then all the teams above that, the higher seeded teams, they've all held serve up to this point. So, and then of course, like I said, the 5 teams from the Big Ten have a chance, or in my opinion, one of those 5 is going to win it. But who's it going to come down to? Probably those 5 Big Ten teams. Duke. Maybe you'll have 1 or 2 SEC teams. I mean, you'll have probably Iowa State, right? I think they're pretty solid. But my point is, all big conferences, all power teams, all big payrolls. That's where we're at.
Oh, on my bracket, I didn't have all chalk. I didn't have Texas beating BYU.
I did.
If you get the reference.
I did.
Okay. If nobody knows the reference, go Google Chris Farley as what was the guy's name? Brennan.
Maybe I'm not the norm.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't pick all chalk. Maybe yeah, it should be on you. It's one of the funniest skits you'll ever see, Chris Farley.
Bennett Brower, news commentator.
Bennett Brower.
Bennett Brower.
It's Bennett Brower. All right.
So good.
So that's a little something from the early 90s. We used to watch Saturday Night Live every Saturday night. That's why it's called Saturday Night Live. Anyway, back in the day, and that was one of his best skits.
Amazing.
A little bit of, I guess, housekeeping, guys. We still have our May Madness coming up, obviously, in May. So you still have some time to get in with some of these players. Just check TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're on all 4 of those. We have a list. I think we have like 4 or 5 players left. We're going to have you guys come on the show, pimp your guy, pimp your ride, and then the mob's going to vote. It ain't me. I'm not voting. I may take a guy and see what I can do with them. But May Madness, it's coming up here quicker than you think. We're halfway through March. April will be here. Before you know it, we'll be into our May Madness. Like I said, I think we got maybe 5 or 6 players left. I'm not sure, but we do have a list. Like I said, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And also remember another edition of Rivals Wednesday morning and Brant's Breaking Point Friday morning. We're going to kind of get back into a groove. Sometimes life happens. We have to miss a show or 2. I don't know what side you're on, but it was his birthday. He wanted to go spend time with his family instead of doing a show.
I figured everybody was just incredibly happy that it was my birthday, and they were just letting me know about it. So had a good time.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for St. John's to beat Duke, so I don't get roasted no more on TikTok. Go Red Storm. Let's go. All right, we'll end it here. For Coach Bo, I'm Chad saying we will see you next time.